Game week for the Ohio State Buckeyes as they prepare to take on the Michigan State Spartans in East Lansing on Saturday night. The Spartans going to come into that game 3-1, coming off of a loss to Boston College. Meanwhile, Ohio State riding high as a 3-0 team. 3 wins against teams they should beat. This one Saturday will be their first test. We're going to set the table for you here on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast, previewing Ohio State versus Michigan State.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Buckeye Breakdown podcast. Anthony Moeglin here, my partner Kevin Woidke, bringing you another episode of our Buckeye Breakdown podcast as we prepare for the Michigan State Spartans, as Ohio State's going to kick off their Big Ten schedule this Saturday. And we do have a time change. It was originally supposed to be a 7 o'clock kick. It will be a 7:30 kickoff in East Lansing. And Kevin, this is just a really exciting week for Ohio State and for Ohio State fans and for the team and really for everybody as they're going to get their first real test of the year. I don't think it's going to be the hardest test that they'll face all year, and we'll get into the numbers here in a little bit, but it's nice to play somebody that's going to be in their weight class, and the Ohio State Buckeyes got to be feeling good, got to be feeling confident going into this one on Saturday.
Absolutely. I mean, we have – in terms of tiers, we got the team up north, and then Michigan State's not too far after that. Penn State wishes they were up there, but they got to start beating us sometime for that to happen. But, Michigan State always plays us hard. We always play each other really, really hard, and then after the game, we're like, all right, go beat the other Michigan team. And that's kind of how it goes. I, for one, am very happy that it got moved to a night game because I'm going down to Carolina to play some golf this weekend. So now I watch it in the cart. I get to sit and really take it in. So excited about that. But no, it's going to be fun. This, these late night games, now it's one that actually matters. It's against a team you have history with, against a team that you like to go beat up. They won't need that little extra juice in them. They're going to have it ready to go and ready to hit Big Ten play in stride.
Before we talk football, what are the courses you're playing? You don't go down to North Carolina to play the local munis. What do we got lined up for this weekend? What are we hitting?
Oh yeah, we got Pine Needles, we got Tobacco Road, and the third one I don't know because I'm afraid to say it out loud. It's just a chance I'm just going to tear it up, and then people are going to come after me. So.
Spoken like a true offensive lineman. If you spoke to a quarterback or a skill guy, I'd tell you, hey, we're playing this course. This is the par. This is the slope. This is the everything. But hey, you're just gonna go down there, have a couple pops, and chase that little white ball around. But for everybody else, we're going to be getting ready for Ohio State versus Michigan State. And this is an exciting weekend for sure for Ohio State Buckeye fans, like I said, and for the players, because last week we really got a taste kind of around the country and around the conference of really the first week of Big Ten play. We had a bunch of barn burner games starting on Friday night when Illinois and Nebraska really squared off, and what probably was the game of the weekend. Goes into overtime. Dylan Raiola didn't have quite enough at the end in overtime to finish it off. And then that led into an awesome Saturday where Indiana went all the way across the country and really just curb stomped UCLA in the Rose Bowl. And that Indiana team looks a little bit different than they have in the past with Kurt Cignetti, their new head coach, kind of leading the charge. And then you go to Saturday afternoon and in their first real Big Ten matchup, USC went to the Big House and took on the Michigan Wolverines. And in a game that Michigan threw, I think they had, 36 yards passing, and they ran the ball, I think, 80% of their plays. They come out with a scrappy, gutsy, season-saving victory over the USC Trojans. And it was just really exciting because this was the first weekend where, you saw this new brand, whatever this new combination of teams is going to be in the Big Ten. And they really got to start competing against each other. And you saw these brands that really never play against each other, really clash and lock horns. And I thought it was pretty cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really impressed with Indiana. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it could turn around this quickly. I mean, they've always been a good team. They've always been hard-fought team. Had a cousin go to Indiana, and she always talked about how they were good, and then I kind of laugh at her. But this year, she's telling the truth. It's a really good team, and I think that Ohio State's already got it on its radar that they're going to need to be on their A game for that game, because this isn't the usual Indiana that you're going up against. They've got a certain spark to them. They've just got it this year, it seems like. And granted, it's early in the season, who knows? Stuff could fall one way or the other, but the other team that I'm pretty impressed with after this weekend, honestly, Illinois.
Yeah.
Illinois had a great show. I thought Nebraska was going to be competing up near the top of the Big Ten. I mean, USC got its first wake-up call. I think that they could have made a call better play calls, but I'm not the coach. As long as the Buckeyes don't do that, I'm fine with it. It's just, I'm excited that the Big Ten starting to really become like a powerhouse conference.
Yeah, it's getting on par, and it's trying to get on par with the SEC, because for the longest while, right, it's been Ohio State and Michigan at the top of the conference, and it's been super top heavy. And now you're getting these teams that are starting to kind of bring it up from the bottom, and that's, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Ohio State and Michigan can only do so much, and it's now finally starting to bring in. And like you said, I know we covered Indiana and Ohio State played in week 1 last year, and then it was a close game. Ohio State didn't look that good. I think they won 20-0, and then Indiana goes to overtime with Akron, I think, and something really weird. And this Indiana version ain't doing that this year. No. And really, truly across the board, that Illinois win in Lincoln, Nebraska was pretty damn impressive, because that environment was insane. Loud. It's Friday night. These Cornhuskers come from all around. They got nothing else to do in Nebraska except go watch the Cornhuskers play, and Illinois escaping with that one in dramatic fashion was pretty sweet. So it was cool to start seeing some of that stuff. And for Ohio State this weekend, they get their first taste at it. And on today's show, we're going to talk specifically about the Michigan State offense versus the Ohio State defense. And I want to turn the clock back just a touch, Kevin, to Sunday, when we discussed what that game was against Marshall. And while I try to say everything very positively, you were like, hey, dude, they didn't play good. And this team, while they did come out with a 3-score or 5-score win, it didn't look good. And that, Kevin, was confirmed today when Jim Knowles, the Ohio State defensive coordinator, was pretty adamant and made a pretty big statement. He didn't name a player of the game. He said, we didn't have enough guys, and nobody played to the level that is our standard. He said a couple guys graded out as champions, but that didn't matter to me. He said nobody played up to our standard. And Kevin, it goes to your point, and you've lived it. You've been inside those walls. That standard's high, and it's a championship standard, and they didn't hit it last week, and they know it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, they wear those silver bullet shirts. I mean, when you name yourself, you have a standard. Like the Ohio State offense doesn't really have a name for itself. High standard, but that's how they choose to live it. Ed Warner tried to implement it, failed epically, but whatever. But I mean, they have the silver bullets. That's what they are. They fly around, and that's what they should be doing. And I'm not surprised, because we had a couple times in this when I was at Ohio State where they wouldn't name an offensive or defensive player of the game even after a win, because it didn't look good. Just call it that. Didn't look good. So I'm not terribly surprised Knowles did this. And, it's his defense. It's his baby. He's concocted this thing. He was dominant in Oklahoma State. Now he's bringing it to Ohio State, and he's got it kind of humming last year, but it sputtered a little bit last week. It looked good for the first couple weeks, but it sputtered. I think after watching film again, I think the defensive line could have played better. I think that Marshall offensive line handled them well. And I think that that's kind of where it is, because with this defense, you want pressure to squeeze that quarterback so that even when you aren't bringing pressure, they're still afraid of it and they're throwing the ball.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
And when your defensive line, and just because you went there, I'll go there too. But when your defensive line can create pressure with 4, that just unlocks everything on the back end of the defense. Just be super aggressive. Then you get Davison, Ingignoson flying around. You get Denzel Burke flying around. You get your trio of safeties flying around and just making plays, because they don't have to add guys into pressure and do all those things. So it was a disappointing performance. I don't think it was bad, but just not up to the standard. And we talked about it too. It's sometimes coming off that weird bye week, and then on the other side of it is a team that you may not have to get all the way up for. You're kind of set up for a performance like that. So while he did that and sent that message to the team, I think it was pretty calculated, I'd say, as we enter Big Ten play, to fire his guys up internally and be like, all right, boys, I'm sure if that was what he was saying publicly, I'm sure that film session was nowhere that you and I wanted to be, because I'm sure it was pretty aggressive and he got after him a little bit. And to fire him up against to go into Michigan State and look the part. You're going to be in prime time. It is going to be on Peacock, so you're not going to have so many eyes on it, but you are going to be a 7:30 kick, and you're going to have whoever is still subscribed who forgot to cancel their Peacock subscription will be tuning in for this one.
I'm a happy Peacock subscriber. They have some great shows on there. They have some great movies on there. I will not stand here for the Peacock slander. That's fun.
Hey, Peacock, give us a call. Give us a call. We got your spokesperson right there. But going into this one, this is a really good opportunity, Kevin, for this defense to get back to where they're supposed to be. This offense for Michigan State is prime for the taking, and one where if Ohio State can come out and play to their standard, they really should dominate.
Absolutely. I mean, they're 75th in rushing yards per game. I mean, put it in a ballpark because people don't know what that – I mean, they're rushing for 153.8. That's worse than Bowling Green. That's worse than JMU. And that's worse than both MAC teams from Michigan. That's just the fact of the matter. I mean, they're better than – but, give them their flowers. They're better than Georgia, better than USC, better than Sooners, and better than the Cornhuskers. But I wouldn't say that those are really run-heavy offenses. Right. I think that they're down. They've just been down this year. They're usually a run-heavy offense, and they're not that good. And then flip it around to the pass side, they're 54th in passing yards per game, about like 247, I think, 250. I mean, that's worse than Georgia Tech, who's brand new to their spread offense, Hawaii, UVA, and Eastern Carolina. I mean, no problem with the Pirates down there at ECU. I mean, John Spellacey's son, John Spellacy, starting center there. I mean, good friend of mine from Ignatius. I mean, that's just the case. But, flip that around. I mean, it's better passing yards than Notre Dame, who seems to not have a passing offense this year. Better passing yards than BC, who they just lost to last week, and then better passing yards than Ton. And I mean, that let's just be honest. Team Up North is 6th worst and I'd love to hear that, 6th worst in the nation in passing. They just can't throw the ball. They load the box with 9 people. You might be able to not even contest a pass. Yeah. Like it's crazy, and that's what it is. I mean, their totals. They're scoring about 25.5 points a game. They got 4 passing touchdowns, 6 rushing touchdowns. And of those 6 rushing touchdowns, 4 of them have been from quarterbacks. Yeah. That's just how their offense is humming this year. That's how they're running. It's not – I wouldn't consider that a good offense. I would say it's right for them to make a big splash in the defensive stats category.
It's huge. And I think, too, another element to that is – I'm going to go back to the bye week one more time with that week off that they had. I think it was Jordan Hancock, and after the Marshall game was talking to the press, and he was like, yeah, we weren't looking past Marshall, but we did in the bye week have a couple Michigan State periods where we were beginning to prep, for their offense. So, Ohio State has started to turn the page a little bit prior to that Marshall game. So they are going to be well prepared. And I want to start in the passing game, Kevin, and talk about quarterback Aiden Childs, who a younger guy. This is his second year playing, and he's off to a pretty poor start. Currently, he's 63 of 116, so he's just about 50%, just north of 50% completions, has 891 yards, 4 touchdowns, and this is the kicker. He has 7 interceptions, and 3 of those came last week against Boston College. And I'm not one to talk down upon a guy for having a bad day. I had my fair share of 3 interception days, probably more than I'd like to admit, but you throw the ball to the other team 3 times. That's not good, especially in their real first big competition. To this point, week 1 was a win against FAU where they escaped by 6 points on, I think that was like either Thursday or Friday night. I remember they were like in a solo time block where they were on against FAU, and then they escaped with a win against Maryland 27-24. They roll Providence, it looked like 40-0, and then not Providence, Prairie View, A&M. Wow, I was a little off there. I saw the PV was their thing, and I was forced to have it. But then they go and they play BC in the red bandana game. So they were a little hyped for that, but they lose 23-19 and Childs kind of let them down, turning the ball over 3 times.
Absolutely. I mean, he's young. Like you said, he's young. I think he's risky. It's kind of like a Jameis Winston out there a little bit. Just maybe need some LASIK eye surgery. I don't know. But it's just, I think that like you said, he's young. I think he has potential. There were some throws he made that looked good. It was just, it's going to take a little while for him to get used to the big lights and stuff like that. The flip side is he doesn't really have a whole lot to throw to. I mean, they've been he doesn't have lots of time to throw or people to throw to. I mean, they've been injury plagued like crazy. I'm blanking on his name. Their freshman wide receiver.
Nick Marsh.
Nick Marsh. Electric. And he had a great game. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago against Prairie View or
8 catches against Maryland. 8 catches, 194 and a score. So almost goes for 2 bills and a score.
I mean, that's a great game, and he's a freshman, and that's just but he got hurt. Antonio Gates Jr. is hurt. There's a lot of injuries, and then on the interior of the offensive line, they're down to their 3rd string right guard because I believe it's a transfer in who played a majority of the current starter transfer in, but I mean, it didn't look good. The injury that their 2nd string that turned into starting right guard had last week at Boston College, but he had taken off. He had a towel over his leg. Wasn't great, but I mean, you'd be hard pressed for me to find a quarterback that could perform well under those kind of conditions either.
Tough,
but that's just the reality of it.
It's really hard when you lose your number 1 target, but filling in that role, senior Montori Foster, a Cleveland native, went to your rival high school. I don't know if you ever shared the field with Montori, but I remember him being a really good basketball player as well back in Cleveland St. Ed's, and obviously a stud on the football field. But he's had a nice start to the year. And filling in that role, 17 catches for 200 yards. He's only scored once, but now he's kind of like been thrust into that number 1 role, taking over for Marsh. And really, when you're Ohio State and you have 1 or 2 guys to key on, that should get you salivating, man. That should have those boys chomping at the bit, especially the Michigan State offensive line's kind of bruised and battered. That defensive line better be, fired up to get after them. And then in the secondary, take 1 or 2 guys away, and it's time to force a ton of turnovers and make a lot of splash big plays when the defense is on the field.
Absolutely. And I mean, they have 2 running backs that are kind of splitting carries, which is evident. They don't really have a true number 1, but neither do we. I mean, granted,
it's like, funny. I was just about to say, Kevin, when you don't have the saying is when you're in they say it with quarterbacks mostly, but you have 2 quarterbacks, that means you have none. In their case, they got 2 running backs, and both of them are solid, I would say. Starts with K'Ron Lynch Adams, who on the year 49 carries, 270 yards and a score, and then Nate Carter. Again, similar build, similar type cat, 47 carries for 200 yards and a score. So they bring a lot of the same stuff to the table, where our 2 guys, I think, are game breakers. Their 2 guys are mostly just kind of your 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of a guy.
Absolutely. And there I'm using absolutely again. They each have a touchdown. It's honestly, if you just took their names out, it's very similar stat lines between the both of them. It's just not like the Michigan State you're used to seeing, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here is that if there was a team that when people look at the eye test of, oh, wow, Ohio State really handled Michigan State, if it's not true ball knowers that are in the weeds looking at everything, it'll feel really good to kind of get that first thing out because you always kind of have that stuff. My freshman year, 2015, wiping the floor with everybody, and then we decided to stop running Ezekiel Elliott in the second half, and Michigan State did that stupid wheelie. That was my freshman year, and that's just
that game.
That's what happened, and you can't overlook these types of games where Michigan State used to be good, and then they won the Big Ten, and then went to Alabama and realized why they got to stay up in East Lansing. But that's just what happened. And
so that's the big thing going into this week is like, all right, we can get hyped and get excited, but at the end of the day, I think Ohio State's 23.5-point favorites last I saw. Maybe it's moved, or maybe I'm in the right ballpark there. So a 3-touchdown favorite at least.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let this one. You can't just afford to stub your toe. I don't think that they will, and I think that Jim Knowles really firing this defense up and not naming a player of the game, and then probably calling them out and doing so behind closed doors, but doing so in the right way. Kind of lighting a fire under their butts, saying, hey guys, like, we need to start picking this up. We kind of slipped, but don't let one bad week become 2 bad weeks, because then we start getting into habits. All right, let's stop everything right where it was and respond and come back. And that's what I'm really excited to see. There's a lot of good stuff that this defense can do on Saturday. A lot of stuff to be excited about. So Kevin, I'm putting you on the spot. What's one position, or even player that you're looking forward to seeing on Saturday evening?
Absolutely. I'm looking at Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams. If Tyleik plays, they're going to have a field day. This interior offensive line is banged and battered, and I think they're going to just dominate. I think that they're going to run a lot of outside zones to get away from it, but I could see them each having a sack and a half each. I mean, I just do. I think they're going to – that interior offensive line for Michigan State is depleted, to say the least, and I think they're just going to have a great day overall as a defensive line, as a unit. But I'm focusing more on the interior. And if they don't play Caden Curry, whoever gets in there, I think that anyone who gets in there, especially in the pass game, is going to look really, really good.
And a good get-right opportunity for that defensive line, too, after a game where I'm certainly disappointed. We all were that they didn't get home. JT may have struggled a little bit. Jack was kind of getting chipped. We showed a couple clips there. And, the interior was kind of getting pushed around. Marshall ran the ball on him. Marshall was able to drop back and stay in the pocket and not have too much pressure on him. So a really great opportunity for the boys up front. For me, it's one of the corners. It's either Denzel Burke or Davison Igbignosin. Would love to see one of those guys get another pick and really just start to play that lockdown defense that we're expecting out of them. This is a really good week to do that, because like we said, not only are they bruised and battered inside on the exterior at the wide receiver position, they're going to be missing their number one cat, and it's a good chance to get after that pass game and do so in a dominating fashion. So excited to see when Ohio State's defense is on the field, what they do to this Michigan State offense. A really good opportunity to just kind of turn the water off and shut them down. But we're going to have more for you later on this week. On Thursday, we're going to preview the Ohio State offense versus the Michigan State defense, see where Will Howard, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, the rest of the crew can really start to exploit and get after this Michigan State defense on Saturday. But in the meantime, we got you covered everywhere. We got a bunch of content coming your way on our YouTube channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe. If you'd rather read some stuff, head over to our page, si.com/college/Ohio State, and we have a bunch of written content over there, whatever you're looking for. But for Kevin Woidke, I'm Anthony Moeglin. Appreciate you guys jumping in and hanging out with us as we get you set for Ohio State versus Michigan State on Saturday night in East Lansing.